Happy Monday, Flosstube. It is Monday, April 22nd, and we are closing in already on next weekend is Sunday high tea. My name is Caroline. Thanks for visiting with me today. I have been looking forward to filming this Flosstube video today because I've got lots to talk about, lots to share. So I have to share something with you first. I was just getting set up to record this video and my daughter texted me a photograph from what's going on in the kitchen right now. So I'm gonna just put that photo in right here. So for those of you who don't know, that is my neighbor's cat. That is not my cat, that is my neighbor's cat. Her name is Sasha. She visits us every day, several times a day. Sometimes she gets a little snack when she comes. She usually comes during the week, has a little nap up here. Actually, this is our storage room. There's a bed on the other side of that half wall there. So it's an extra bedroom when we have lots of people at Christmas time, holiday times, things like that. This is where I store all of my extra batting for the bags, fabric bolts, things like that. I also teach up here, which you can't see, but just on that side of the room is where my piano is and my music stand for my flute students and things like that. I also have my drum, my drum that I use. I found it at a garage sale many years ago and I use that for rhythm practice with my students. So it's kind of an all-purpose room. It is Easter Monday, so it is a bank holiday here in Canada. My kids have the day off school. My son has a friend coming over in like 20 minutes, so I'm probably going to have to break up this video and do it in a few different parts to get them settled and sorted out downstairs. So that is why I'm recording up here. So Sasha is not our cat, she's the neighbor's cat, and she, as you can tell, makes herself quite at home. So anyways, I thought that was really quite funny. So I'm going to start today off the way that I usually like to start, which is with a giveaway, because Monday. The drawing can be found on the Facebook group, Friday Off the Grid. Last week's giveaway was for this Lizzie Kate snippet. And I had, where did it go? I had 167 comments on this chart giveaway. The random number generator chose comment number 101 and the winner was Kathy Walker. So congratulations, Kathy. If you want to please send me your address, I will get this out to you. Like I mentioned last week, I'm a little behind in giving out giveaways. I always say this, I tend to batch them together and send them all out together, but I'm a little bit further behind this time than I thought I was. So I have packaged up a number of them on Friday and I'll get them in the mail tomorrow because the post office is also closed today. So if you are waiting for a giveaway from me or if you win a future giveaway from me, please know that I sometimes am a little slow in getting those out into the mail. They'll eventually go out. And I've never had one not show up. So hopefully you'll still want to enter my giveaway, even though I'm a little slow in getting them out the door. Okay, so today's Because Monday giveaway is a chart from filigram.com. And this is not a designer I'm all that familiar with, but I thought it was a really sweet pattern. And if you like stitching houses, then I think you'll like this one. So it's called Garden Colors. Actually, I'm going to take it out of the plastic because the photograph on this chart is not, it's not really easy to see the stitching. It's quite small. So it's the seasons. So there's 4, is that focusing? 4 houses, 4 seasons. And the chart is called Garden Colors. So again, that was www.filigram.com. And the chart calls for either Gentle Arts or DMC. You can see there is a easy conversion chart for either or on the back, and there's the information in case you're interested. It's a sweet pattern. So many designers that are, you know, we discover every day. Okay, so there's our giveaway, and I'm going to get right into from the mailbag section. I had some comments and questions from last Monday's video, so this morning before I started recording I went through them all, and I think I've got everything sorted and ready to go. I think I took some photographs of the comments that I wanted to be able to read, so hopefully I have it so that I can find what I've written down on my Cole's Notes cheat sheet here. Okay, so starting out with, I did a little review of mybobbin.com last Monday and the products that they sent me, and the first thing that I shared with you was the PDF download of the birds chart that I received printed and downloaded. And I made my best guess at this title. I thought maybe I was just going to call it birds. Well, Leanna H confirmed. She wrote me and she left a comment. She said, yes, it says birds. So how clever am I? Ugh. So while I'm talking about this pattern, I'm going to jump ahead to talking about a question that I had about the requirements, you know, the fabric requirements. There was a list here in Russian. Was it in French as well, or just Russian? No, it was Russian and English. And there were numbers after the linen. And I'd never seen this before. So Zweigart Cashel 28 count, and then it says 3281/770. Zweigart Belfast 32 count 3609/770. I'd never seen that before. I had no idea what it meant. And because we have such a clever group of worldwide stitchers, I received three or four answers about this from Martha, Kobe, and Rose. So thank you so much, because it really was actually very interesting. So Kobe's comment, I'm just going to read this comment so that I make sure I get it right. The numbers behind the Cashel and Belfast are color numbers. We in Europe call out the color of the fabric by its number, not with a name like mocha, for instance. So in my opinion, they recommend 2 colors to choose from that will be perfect for the pattern you want to stitch. That's pretty cool. So either color 770, which is a blue-gray color, or the other color number mentioned. Thanks for sharing your thoughts about this shop. Okay, so, and then Rose pretty much had the same thing to say, but I also thought it was worth reading you her comment. She says, it pays to have worked in my LNS. Lucky you, Rose. Zweigart is from Germany, and their linens and linen colors are numbered. 3281 is Cashel, and 3609 is Belfast. 770 is the color Platinum. If you go to traditionalstitches.com and type in the linen number, so traditionalstitches.com, they're in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Type in the linen number, then a dash, followed by the color number. Your color will come up. 3281-770 and 3609-770. So instead of the slash, so that Rose says, instead of typing in the slash, you type in a dash instead. And then she says, did I confuse you? Nope, not at all, Rose. I thought that was clear as a bell. And thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting stuff. Okay, so next up, I had spoken about, we were talking about Krynic, and there was a gadget that I talked about, and I even said we should ask Liz and Deb to talk about it in their gadget corner, or they've probably already talked about it in their gadget corner and I've just missed it. And sure enough, Deb and Liz, because they're amazing, they have already talked about this tool in one of their gadget corners. I'm not sure exactly which episode it is, however they have done it. So this week, I am quite behind on Flosstube. I didn't have a lot of time last week to watch. So I'm going to try and catch up this week, and hopefully I'll find the right episode where they talked about this tool. But I did have a few people write in and tell me what it was about. So it's called a thread straightener. It's actually called the thread straightener, and it's made by a company called Flying Needles. And Linda Given purchased one through the Silver Needle. Now, Linda, I did not make a note here of whether or not it works well for you. So I should have looked at that a little more carefully, because going through some other comments about it, you'll see what I mean in a minute. But I'd like your opinion on it and exactly how you use it, because I had another comment from Gloria, who wrote in about a blog post from Mary Corbet's. And I'm actually going to include a link to Mary Corbet's blog post about this, because she found this tool, the thread straightener, at her LNS, and she wondered what the heck it was all about and what it was for. So she bought one and she took it home and she tried it out, and she found that it didn't actually work very well for her. And she wondered if maybe she was using it incorrectly. So Linda, I'd be really curious to know your opinion on how it works and exactly what you're doing. If you've gotten it to work really well, how are you using it in particular? But I have to read you the little bit of post, the end of the post from Mary Corbet's blog post, because I thought it was quite funny, and it deals with Kreinik. So she says, a tried and true method for relaxing kinked, curly, or bouncy silk thread. Take the whole bundle, assuming it's coming off a skein, and cut it to your preferred length for stitching. Then put the tea kettle on. Once it starts whistling, hold your bundle of thread in both hands and pull gently on it while running it through the steam from the kettle. In this way, you've relaxed your whole bundle of threads in one go. Then fix yourself a cup of tea and let your threads dry out. You can also use Thread Heaven on particularly cantankerous threads to good effect. So, the tea kettle. I thought that was a great idea. Okay, so what else? Oh, Anne. Anne wrote in about the thread straightener and says that there is a shop called the Yarn Tree, and apparently they carry it as well. All right, so we are moving right along today. Moving right into Kyle's question from last week had to do with dominant hand versus non-dominant hand on top of your stitching when you're stitching two-handed. And I had a number of people write in to say that they're just like Kyle and they never thought anything of it, that it was unusual in any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's probably a really good indicator of the fact that, you know, different strokes, right? We all do what works best for us. And lots of people find that their non-dominant hand, their dominant hand, it just feels more natural for them to have it on top. And to them, there is no right and wrong way, right? But apparently, according to Myra, like I talked about last week, as she says, having the dominant hand on top means that you're touching the fabric less, which keeps it cleaner. So that's good. But Alice in Stitches sent in a comment that I thought described exactly why non-dominant hand stitchers on top, why it works best for us. So I'm going to read you what she had to say here. So Alice in Stitches, she says, my dominant hand, right, is underneath because it intuitively finds the holes faster and doesn't need to scrape over threads or other holes near as much as the non-dominant hand, left. Because I can see the holes on top, the left hand can go to the hole faster. So for me, dominant hand is underneath and non-dominant is on top, just faster for me. And that's exactly what I find as well. Absolutely. That's exactly why the non-dominant hand is on top. Myra's comment to me originally when we first started discussing this last year was that with practice, both can be equally as fast. and that the benefits to having the dominant hand on top for her, because of the type of and style of embroidery that she does, she makes that effort to stitch that way. But again, it's kind of like preference, not just preference, but stitch however it makes you happy, right? No rules. So just another opinion and information, and we can never have enough information, right? The more you know. So I had a number of people and commenting about the fact that they use their dominant hand on top. One of them was our lovely Diana from It's Kismet Stitches. And Diana, I just wanted to shout her out again, just briefly here. Just another shout out for her lovely Facebook group and her Flosstube channel, but also her Facebook group for the Flosstube Fit Club. It's a really lovely place to hang out. I've only been there for a week, but I'm liking it. It's been nice to, I've been a bit more active this week. I've been using my treadmill a little bit more, walking outside a little bit more now that the weather is nicer. I even managed to get my geriatric retriever out for a little walk the other day. She slept for the next 12 hours, but you know, it was good for both of us. So Flosstube Fit Club, I highly recommend it. So that's it for that side of my crib sheet here. And okay, so next up, I had a question from Debbie Blewett. Now, question and comment, I think, is the right way to describe what Debbie has written in. And before I read what she sent me here, I have to say that I had never thought about this topic before. It had never even really crossed my mind. So it actually really gave me a lot of food for thought, which I love. I love when that happens, when somebody says something and you're like, oh, hang on, Nicholas's friend is here. Okay, I'm back. They are happily playing downstairs together. So it's always so nice to have a friend over for your kid, because it gives them something different to do and somebody else to talk to other than you for the next couple hours. It's good for both of us. So, okay, so getting back to what I was talking about, the comment and question from Debbie Blewett. So, like I said, never thought about this before until she sent me this, and I found it very, very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to read it verbatim so that you know exactly what she said. Question for you and our community. Why do people insist on calling any stitch other than cross stitch or back stitch a specialty stitch? In my opinion, this word gives people the impression that there is great difficulty or technique involved, or that they have a higher status. I think this may prevent stitchers having a go. There is nothing special about them. They have been used for centuries all over the world. They are stitched on anything from a high fashion gown to a humble tea towel. They are, like cross stitch, an embellishment using needle and thread, nothing more. They just take a little knowledge and practice. Other embroidery stitches would be a better, more truthful, and friendlier term, I think. What are your thoughts? Well, I'll tell you, I had no thoughts on this. I just had the boys need the Wi-Fi password. So this video could be interrupted several more times before we're finished this morning. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so yeah, it's a really valid point that something I'd never really thought about. And it's absolutely true. And I think the only reason they're called specialty stitches is because it sort of lumps that category of different stitches together that aren't cross stitch or back stitch, because people will specifically look for patterns that don't have those in them because they just want something that is very straightforward, not a lot of brain power. Not that it doesn't take brain power. You know what I mean. I don't mean that as an insult, but simply that sort of stitching where you just get into the groove and you don't have to think too hard. You just make your nice little X's and you're good to go. And specialty stitches would lump together everything else where it's not something that you would use every day on a regular basis, where you might have to look up a YouTube video on how to do it, and most likely the next time you had to do it, you'd probably have to watch that same video again to remember how to do it. So it's an easy way to describe a whole category of other stitches. So I like your other embroidery stitches as a category, which tends to, you know, make it a lot more accessible, which is true, because specialty stitches or other embroidery stitches, I'm gonna have to get used to saying that. It's like anything, you know, retrain your brain. What was I gonna say? Lost my train of thought. I'm gonna edit that out. They're not hard. They do just take practice, just like learning how to do anything else. So I've always felt that way about, it's funny about words, right? And their meaning that we attach to them. Lots of stitchers call variegated cotton or hand-dyed cotton fancy floss. And I've never wanted to really use that term. Not because I think that there's something wrong with people calling it fancy floss. It's just that for me, that term, I don't know, is it broad? Does it cover anything that's not just a regular cotton thread? So I prefer to separate out my category of floss. If I'm using an over-dyed cotton, I will call it an over-dyed cotton, like Weeks or Crescent Colors, Classic Colorworks. One of these days I'm going to get that right, which company that is now, their new name. New name, it's probably been like 10 years. Anyway, silks. Are you using, you know, dinky dyes or you know what I mean. I'm going to call it a silk thread, or I'm going to call it an over-dyed cotton or a variegated thread. So calling it fancy floss, what exactly are you referring to? Just a little minor bugaboo of mine, but probably most of you that call it fancy floss don't give it that much thought because you don't care. You just call it fancy floss, and I think that's great. So yeah, other embroidery stitches. I like it. I like it. I think it's good. And it certainly makes it seem, you know, levels off the playing field, right? You can do anything. If you want to learn how to do a bullion stitch, that's not easy. So many interruptions. 11-year-old boys are great at interruptions. So I'm going to finish off my discussion on other embroidery stitches and then move on. So you just, they're just like anything else. It's just a new technique that you look up and practice. Kind of like learning how to do a new technique with your knitting, other knitting stitches. So interesting, very interesting conversation, Debbie. And I really hope that we start a discussion in the comment box below on what other people think about this. As always, keep it kind, keep it nice, as we always do. It is much appreciated. It's going to take me a long time to edit this video this afternoon. I can tell you right now, because so many interruptions. Okay, so drinking my coffee, which has now sat here for a while, as you can tell by the foam on top has now sunk down into my cup. So this is my procrastinate mug, which I love. It's a verb, to cross stitch when you should or could be doing housework. So anyway, I know there have been a lot of breaks. However, this is a good opportunity for me to talk about the next two comments from both Norma and Suzanne before I just take a little ad break here from YouTube. So both Norma and Suzanne left me messages saying that when I say I'm going to put in an ad here from YouTube, they say they're not getting an ad. This is totally normal. Not everybody's going to get an ad. I have no control over what YouTube decides to do with the ad. The majority of viewers will get an ad. Some viewers won't. And I have no control over that. The only thing I can control is where I put the ads. It's a little tricky. It's a little fiddly. You have to go back into the video once it has uploaded, and you have to know exactly the spot, you know, and you have to kind of fiddle with where you put the ad. But you have control over where you put the ad. What you don't have control over is whether or not YouTube puts an ad there. Most of the time they do. And different times of the year, apparently, are different because it depends on an advertiser's budget as to when they spend more money on advertising. It also depends on who is watching the video. You may notice that the ads are targeted more towards you and your viewing history. Suzanne, a few weeks ago, mentioned she was getting a lot of election ads. We had an election in Ontario a while back, a provincial election, and the same thing was true for me. I was getting a lot of political ads in the YouTube videos that I was watching. They also, you know, YouTube, they're not dummies. They have all of the information, and you know, this bothers some people because it feels a little bit, the term is, I guess, big brotherish, right? You know, they're watching. But from your habits, from what you're watching, they can kind of tell, you know, gender, age, preferences, things like that. And so, I mean, obviously they're taking a guess because let's face it, I'm getting some ads and I'm like, why are they showing me that? Never anything questionable. However, I have no control over whether or not you get an ad. That was a long-winded way to say, I don't know, you might get an ad, you probably will get an ad, but you might not. And on that note, I'm gonna put a little ad in right here. Thank you. Okay, I visited another Flosstuber who left me a comment last week. Her channel name is Mrs.B in Stitches, and I'll write that here up on the screen, and I will also put the name of her channel in the drop-down box below. She has some Stitch With Me videos, and so I watched her most recent one, and I thought it was worth mentioning here in case you are a Heaven and Earth design either stitcher or wannabe Heaven and Earth design stitcher, because she is doing a Haid Mini. So I can't remember the name of the pattern that she's working on, but it's quite pretty. And but what I really liked about her Stitch With Me video was after she sort of her initial sort of intro, she focused the camera a little bit closer on her stitching, and she has a great view of railroad because she railroads every leg of every stitch. At least when I was paying attention to her stitching, she was railroading every leg. 2 strands on an even weave. Did you say what count it was? I can't remember. But it was 2 strands of thread, and she was railroading every leg. And so if you've heard of the term railroading, but you have no idea what it is, or if you've never heard of it, it's a way to make your 2 legs of your threads lie nice and flat as you pull your stitch through. Your threads lie really nicely on your fabric. So if you want a great view of how to railroad a stitch, go and check out her Stitch With Me video and have a little visit like I did. So thank you, Mrs. B. Thank you for leaving me a comment and letting me know that you had a Flosstube channel. Last but not least, from the mailbag, we have our question from Kyle. So Kyle had a great question this week. He asks, if someone came to you directly saying that they wanted to start their own Flosstube, what would be your #1 piece of advice to give them? And anything else you might have. I thought that was a great question. Really, really good question, because I am totally pro versus con starting a Flosstube channel. So I guess my number one piece of advice is, if you have any desire at all in starting a Flosstube channel, you should start it for yourself, not for... The number one reason I did it was so that I would have a record, that I could go back and I could look at my progress of, you know, when I started something versus how long it took me, or looking at something and being encouraged at my progress. Because when you don't sort of see it, when you're, you know, working away at something and you don't really, you think, oh, this is taking forever. And I look back on almost 2 years ago. 2 years? I started this channel in July of 2017. So it's coming up on 2 years. And I think back to that first episode when I held up the floss to my ink circles. And the screen cap, you can see it in the screen cap. And when I look back at screen caps, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I talked about that. I remember when I talked about that. And so the number one reason I started the Flosstube channel was for myself. And it has been the most fun thing I've ever done, ever, was starting a Flosstube channel. The number two piece of advice would be, don't compare yourself to anyone else. There's always going to be someone who has more subscribers, more views, more viewers, more whips, more expensive gadgets, expensive threads, projects. There's always going to be someone who has more. There's always going to be someone who has, who doesn't do things the way that you do. Maybe they do things differently, and maybe they're going to leave you comments that they do things differently. That's them, and that's on them, and that's what they have, and that's what they do. So you just have to look at what you've got and what you're doing and find your joy in your own thing. Because if you're constantly thinking, oh, well, that person is getting hundreds of views or thousands of views and I'm not, well, okay, so go back to my first point. You're doing this for you. So the most important thing about it is that it's a memory for you. That's the silver lining here. This is really, it's fun. It's fun to look back and see what you've done for yourself. And it also, you know, not comparing yourself, you're going to find a lot more joy in what you're producing. And the third thing is, be prepared to make a few new friends. Because even if the number one reason that you're doing this is for yourself, I can pretty much guarantee you that you're still going to make a few new friends. And that, more than anything else, is the best part. That's the best part. It just is. You're gonna make some new friends. So if you wanted to start your own Flosstube channel, you know, there are some mechanics there. How do I go about doing it? Well, this is going back 2 years. So just start. Just do your research. Go online. Just Google how to start a YouTube channel. And then decide how you're going to record it. I just record on my phone. I have an iPhone. It's certainly not the newest, latest, greatest iPhone. The quality of the video for me is pretty good. I'm happy with it. I might update one day to filming on a camera. I don't know. I think I'm doing okay with my iPhone. It also makes editing pretty straightforward because all of my platforms are Macintosh, so my Apple talks nicely to my computer. So now, that being said, making Flosstube videos, if you do it on a regular basis, it's a fair bit of work. So you should know that up front. But the more you do with the video, the more work it takes, right? So start simple. Don't worry so much about editing. Don't worry about your lighting. Don't worry about your camera quality. Because Elizabeth just left a link on the Facebook group to her brand new Flosstube video, and I don't have the name of it right off the top of my head because I was planning on visiting her this afternoon while I'm doing my sewing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to Elizabeth's very first Flosstube video in the drop down box below. I'll also remember to put her YouTube channel name right here so that you can go and visit her as well. And she was quite concerned with her video quality. And so I said to her, we don't really care about that. We just want to come and visit you. We just want to come and play at your house. We just want to have a play date with and see your stitching and talk to you about your stitching. So don't worry so much about those things. This is, that's the beauty of videos on YouTube. We're not worried about, you know, production value here. We're just looking for friends and a record of how we spend our days and time. And it's a beautiful community. So jump in. So fun. Okay, that takes care of my Cole's notes. Do you want to see my whips? Do you want to see what I've been working on? So I didn't actually get to any stitching until Friday because it was a crazy week last week. So I didn't do a single stitch, not even in my secret stitching. And I've decided I'm not going to share that until after I've gifted it. And then I will take a video before, I'll take a little video of what I'm making before I give it away. But then I'll put that clip in after I've given it away because I'd like it to be a surprise. And I have a few other ideas for other gifty giveaways that secret stitches and things like that are percolating away, but I'll save those to talk about till later. So Friday I started a stitch along. Loose rules, so aka no rules. Join me if you want. There's a hashtag Game of Swans Sal, and this is for the Long Dog Samplers Game of Swans. This beauty right here. And I started this on Friday, and I quite literally did not, every spare moment I had, I wanted to work on this. So I'll show you my fabric first. This is, oops, got a sneak peek there. This is 40 count linen from XG Designs. I can't tell you the color name because it was in one of, it was the Fabric of the Month Club. I was in a 3-month subscription for primitive colorways. This was one of the fat quarters that came 1 month. I can tell you this, Jukas's fabric is fabulous. It's fabulous. And I know for a fact that I will be buying more because it smells good. I mean, it smells good. It smells wonderful. I don't know what she uses to rinse her fabric when she's before she sends it out, but it retains that scent. I mean, I bought this last year and it's been tucked away in my stash drawer with my other fabrics, and it still has that faint smell that I remember when I opened the package for the first time. And I love it. And when I'm stitching, every once in a while, I'll just catch a little scent from the fabric, and I love it. If you're sensitive to fabric smells, or if you're sensitive to smells, maybe that might be something that bothers you. I certainly don't find it overpowering in any way, shape, or form. It's quite a delicate scent. I really, really like it. Okay, so again, I don't know the colorway name because I did not save the tag. I am a terrible Flosstuber when it comes to sharing information like that. I have no idea, but it was, I believe it was just a colorway for the Fabric of the Month Club. And this was, I'm gonna say this was early 2018. So it has a very pale hint of a green. So I'm gonna show, you're all waiting to see my stitching, aren't you? I'm gonna stop talking now and show you the stitching. So this is what I got done. Ta-da! So I'll bring that a little closer so you can see. I started in the center Shocking for me. I always usually start in the bottom left-hand corner, which is unusual, but anyways. I'm using the called for DMCs. I'm not using the Gentle Arts. I believe it's Gentle Arts threads. Is it weeks or Gentle Arts? I can't remember. I don't actually have the thread chart up here, but I am using one strand of DMC stitched 1/2. And I was up late filling in the gingham pattern on the pot, but then I decided if I didn't take it off my frame, then I would never get any other stitching done for the next month, because all I want to work on is this. But I know for a fact that I also want to put some stitches in my other projects. So I made myself finish my length of thread, and then I unscrewed the ends and caps, and I took it off, and I immediately put tiramisu back on the frame so that I could make sure that I get some work done on tiramisu, because otherwise Ginger Gerald is going to be done Henry. I'm not even going to be close to having the stitching done on tiramisu. Anyways, more on that in a minute. So as you can see, that's quite a big chunk of the middle that I did. So am I crazy to think that maybe this might not take me all that long? That was one weekend. So my plan is to maybe every 2 weeks spend 1 day of stitching time on this sal. I think that that is a good goal. I think that's doable and will allow me enough time to work on my other projects as well. So it'll be like a special treat every 2 weeks. Okay, so that's my game of swans. I'm going to move my coffee away from my stitching. And the other thing, like I mentioned, I put my tiramisu back on my frame. This is the Glendon Place from the dessert series. Now, if browns are not your color, and lots of people don't enjoy these colors, I've had some people say, oh, I love that design, but I'd stitch it in purple or green or any other color other than brown. I really like earth tones, but the one thing that I did change about this pattern, I am not stitching it on the called for fabric, because I found it a little orangey, and I found that combined with some of the thread colors in here, it made the design look quite orange. And I like orange, but I don't love orange, and it really wouldn't have gone with anything in my house. So I stuck with a more neutral fabric. I went with sand. The Picture This Plus, it's sand, 28 count, even weave. And I am not gonna, this is on my frame, so I'll show you my frame here. This is, you can maybe you'll remember I didn't have this circle finish. So I finished off the bottom of this one ring here, and then with the same, this is Dinky Dyes, the called for Dinky Dyes silks is what I'm using, and then I came down, I did some more work right in this with the same floss color here. So I did a little bit more there. So not very much, but considering I was completely besotted with Game of Swans, the fact that I even put a single solitary stitch in this is a win. So I'm quite pleased that I finished this off. My next, and can you see, it's hard to see it, but I love this kind of naturally white stitching in here. It looks a little bit like lace, and you can see this section in here. It's just beautiful. And so I might do the next one that comes down in here. That might be what I work on next. That, and then this motif. Is that here again? Does it go the other way? I can't remember. I guess I could look at the pattern. When all else fails, yeah. So there's going to be another one of these pots here. Those actually work up quite quickly. So I might get to that next, so that I am encouraged by that quick progress. So anyways, I will either be working on this or Savon again for the Friday Stitch With Me video. I haven't done any more work, or you know what, maybe my ABC sampler houses, because that was another one I wanted to get some work done in this week. Yeah, I'm going to work on my sampler houses on Friday for the Friday Stitch With Me video, because I haven't put any stitches in that since the last Stitch With Me video that I did for that, I think. Or did I? I can't remember. But anyways, that's what I feel like working on. Okay, I started a new sock. I brought this up to show you. I think I shared last Monday that I had finished my second yellow and gray sock, so I now have a complete pair, which means I am casting on a new pair. So this weekend, I'll show you the yarn first. This is, and I know not everybody, you know, enjoys the yarn chit chat, so I won't drone on and on, I promise. This is yarn that was dyed by the lady who well, she still owns my local yarn shop, Knit Stitch. She has closed down the London location and she is moving to Stratford, which is about a 45-minute drive from here. She also dyes yarn herself. And so last month, just like Jukas's Fabric of the Month Club, I belonged to her Sock of the Month Club, and she put out a 3-month subscription where you would get a surprise skein of sock yarn once a month. And this came in what was called a sock blank. Now, sock blanks are actually really interesting. It's a piece of knitted fabric, and you can either get a single sock blank or a double sock blank. Double sock blanks are double knit so that both strands are knit together at the same time, and when they're dyed, when you take them apart, you should end up with 2 matching socks because they've been dyed at exactly the same time, if that makes sense. I don't like knitting from sock blanks because the yarn comes off really kinked and twisted, and I don't like how my stitches look when I'm knitting from a sock blank. So my friend Adrienne very kindly took this home. She is a yarn dyer, so she knows what she's doing, and she's a lot faster at it than me. She unwound it, she rinsed it, she hung it up to dry, and she recaked it for me in 2 individual cakes. So each one of these will make a sock, and I will probably have a little bit more left over at the end. So I cast on my cuff. The way that I like to knit my socks is with a small 9-inch circular needle, and then I use double pointed needles for the heel and the toe. So, and I've also, my new way of doing socks is I cast on both at the same time. So I cast on the first one and I knit the cuff, and then I couldn't quite stop. So I did another inch, ta-da, of my sock, plain stockinette. It's a very simple sock pattern. This is the pattern that I use on the knitting tutorials that you can find in the playlist section on this channel. It's a pattern done by my friend Louise. It's called the Super Simple Cuff Down Sock Pattern. Now it's kind of blowing out, but doesn't that look like an Easter egg? It was the perfect yarn to be knitting on Easter weekend. So I love it. So there's my first sock. And as you can see, I have my second needle ready to go to cast on sock number 2. So I am now going to leave this where it is and cast on my second sock and get the cuff done. And then what I will do is I go down each one to the heel on both, and then I do both heels, so on and so forth, so that, you know, when I'm done, I have a pair. That's the plan anyways. Now my socks are in my new bag. So not much of a shop update today, so that's why I've saved the bag to show you now, in case you're still watching. If you're interested, I made some drawstring bags for, well, mostly I couldn't wait to make one of these for myself. So this is a Tula pink fabric. Isn't that bright? Now actually it's even brighter on the camera than it is in real life. This pink is really blowing out. It is a hot pink, but it's not a neon pink. So let me see if I can, no, you're not going to be able to see the color. The photos on the shop website are pretty true to form. What about over here? That's a bit better. That's a bit better. There we go. So if you haven't noticed, it's got a snail on it. A few. So I've called this my ode to a slow knitter. And as you can guess, I'm going to be making some stitching bags with this exact same combination, probably by the end of the week, in various sizes, medium and large. And I'll probably make a couple of large knitting bags as well. Those are coming up later this week. I have some other orders queued up, some other sewing to do first before I get to these. But if you are absolutely in love with this and you know you want one, just send me a message, and I'm happy to make one for you before I put them in the shop. Okay, so that's what my socks are in, and this is the best. Are you ready? That is such a satisfying sound, and look at how cute. It just sits neat and tidy. My sock is protected. Okay, so that's it for me today. Hopefully those boys are not making an enormous mess downstairs, but it's time to go and check on them. I hope you have a wonderful week. I will have a video up on Friday. I'm probably going to record on Thursday, but the video will be up at 6 o'clock on Friday for our Friday Off the Grid Stitch With Me party. There's the Facebook group. I hope you'll join us over there, Friday Off the Grid. And we tend to party all weekend long, as much stitching as we can possibly fit in to our weekend, and share your progress with other stitchers over there. So, happy weekend. No, that's not the weekend. Happy week. Have a great week. Happy stitching. And I'll see you Friday.